and welcome to episode 433 of the Gersnet Podcast. I'm your host tonight, John McCallum. Gersnet, of course, is the independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where all of the content is, of course, free. It's not just the podcast we have a forum, we have articles, we have social media, and there's a great history archive as well. If you enjoy the pod, we would encourage you to subscribe. If you're listening for the first time and you enjoy it, subscribe. We're usually on twice a week, Fridays and Sundays, depending on when our games are. Today, obviously, it's been a bit of a disappointing day at Hampden. So we'll look back at the key moments from today, such as our starting lineup, our failure to take chances. We'll wonder just what a Celtic player would need to do to be sent off. And of course, we'll discuss Celtic's man of the match performance from Nick Walsh as well. Before we do any of that, though, we need to have a quick chat about our sponsors, who are Forrest Precision Engineering. They are a Glasgow-based engineering company, and they have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years now, and we're delighted they are backing our podcast again. You can learn more about them online at forrestprecisioneng.com, and you can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a stunning hospitality area within the main stand. And for information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can contact the club directly at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. I'm joined tonight by Ben and Ross, and they get to follow up a miserable afternoon watching Rangers with an hour talking about it with me. So I guess the two of you must have been particularly bad in a previous life. Well, probably not bad enough that would actually get you sent off. If you were a Celtic supporter, or a Celtic player rather, it wouldn't obviously be that bad. And nobody could be that bad. So listen, let's just dive straight in, Ben. Let me start with yourself. Let's just talk about the game. Let's get it over with. Frankie describes this as therapy. I don't know what kind of therapy you get out Frankie's way, but apparently talking about this will make us feel better. The team, when it came out, there were some changes that were forced. Barn wasn't in the team, having had a better game the other night, and there were some changes. Some surprises, perhaps. What did you think when you saw our starting lineup, both at the time and now with the power of hindsight?
Yeah, I mean, evening, John, and evening, everyone. On the talk of therapy, I would have probably gone for electrical therapy over this, but anyway, we are. But yeah, no, on the team, I've no major complaints with it. Look, you could have looked around. The one thing I was glad was we stayed with the same shape to start with, because I think if we found a shape that these players are able to get wins from, since they haven't been able to get too many of those otherwise, then we should try and build on that and stick to that. So that was pleasing. Obviously, losing Barron was a blow, but we knew going in there. I was pleased to see Alsgaard coming back into the team, because I do think, obviously we'll touch on how it went, but I do think that he is that one player that, although he hasn't certainly lived up to what we think he can be on a consistent level, is that one player in there that can make something happen out of nothing. I still believe that if it clicks for him, he can be a very good player. So I was pleased to see him in there. Now, I think up front, kind of it picked itself, and that's not because the players are so wonderful up there. It's because the alternatives haven't been up to it. So I don't have any major things. I maybe would like to find a way of getting Gassam into the team. And I think probably the easier thing would have been maybe to have Tavernier playing a right centre back. I hope we don't see an awful lot more of Giga after today. Anyway, that's for sure. I think he's a disaster.
Aye. Yeah, it's interesting you say Asgard hasn't been consistent. I think he's been very consistent. Unfortunately, I think he's been consistently bad. But like you say, we'll come to that. I mean, I think I was probably expecting some changes. Just but because it was a cup semi-final, because it was a one-off game at Hampden, I think I was expecting some changes. I suppose up front, I probably wasn't too surprised at Gersnet and Danilo starting. They'd both scored goals in previous games. We don't have an awful lot of options up there anyway. Asgard did surprise me. I thought I didn't think he was going to be starting too many more games for us, just based on recent form. I thought Moore would start. I could kind of understand why he did. Asgard is tall. I guess he allowed for something at set pieces, both defensively and attacking. Moore is an inexperienced player, but I thought Moore looked pretty decent in the last couple of games when he's been on. I thought he might start. Ross, starting 11 aside, you're young. You're still young. I've been saying you're young for about the last 10 years on here. Now you're still young compared to me. So I don't know how much you remember of Martin O'Neill's first stint at Celtic. I don't know if it's something that you ever had the pleasure of watching his Wimbledon on steroids Celtic team from the kind of early 2000s. I was talking to a couple of people this week about it, and for me there was no surprise about how Celtic were going to play. Martin O'Neill wants his teams to get the ball into the box quickly. He likes to get the ball out wide, and anyone who's watched our team this season would know that we're not the best at cross balls. And O'Neill likes his teams to get the ball into the box quickly. He likes the ball to get out wide and then back in, and he also likes to play for free kicks. Plus, he likes a physical team. He likes a team that's going to put a lot of energy into a game. So for me, it was no surprise at all how Celtic played today. Were you surprised how we started the game? I think the word I used was meekly. And it did feel like that, I thought, at the start. I thought that at the start we were second best to every ball.
Yeah, I thought the first 20 to 25 minutes was appalling, actually. It was really, really, really difficult to watch. And so you're right. I remember Martin O'Neill from the first time round. He left Celtic when I was 13. So I probably couldn't give you an overly detailed tactical analysis of what they did. I was surprised by the aggression in a number of ways. The aggression of their press in the first 20 minutes. I thought that they didn't want to give us any space, which has been our tactic against Celtic in the last 2 or 3 seasons, has been to put pressure on them, and it's paid off. And I think it frightened the life out of us, actually. I felt that first 20 to 25 minutes, we looked scared. We looked terrified. We looked poor on the ball. We looked scared off the ball. I've rarely seen us be so bad in possession. We were giving the ball away. We were sloppy. Everyone was guilty of it, particularly Nasser Giga. I would agree with Ben. He's not going to cut it up here unless that should be the end of it. So I was surprised at how we started, because it's not been the case in Old Firm games over the last couple of seasons. I watched the game today on a Rangers TV feed, making excellent use of one of the club sponsors there to take a short holiday to Turkey. And Tom, the commentator, was saying, there are 5 players in this starting 11 for whom it's their first Old Firm, and they're clearly taking some time to grow into the occasion. You shouldn't need time to grow into the occasion. It's a game of football, right? You should be good enough to play the game, not the occasion. You should not be overwhelmed. You should not be intimidated because the team is slightly better than the other teams that you might have faced in the league. So I was actually really, really disappointed by how timid and scared that we looked, because it just shouldn't be the case. It's a cup semi-final. You know that you're playing for a chance to go and play St Mirren in a final. There's no excuse for it. And they just looked completely overwhelmed by the occasion. They looked completely terrified by what was put in front of them. And we could not hold the ball. We could not hold the ball and string more than 2 or 3 passes together in that first 20 minutes. We got away with it with the own goal that was chopped off, which was a lot tighter than I think it looked actually on first watching. We'll come on. Well, I'm sure we will talk about our wastefulness in front of goal, but it actually could have been a lot worse, that first 20 minutes. So, yeah, I liked the starting lineup. I've seen that Danny Rule is getting a bit of stick for some of his choices. I don't know that he had many other better options, particularly Chermiti up front. I mean, Chermiti or Majowski for me at the moment is a flip of a coin. Or if I was to put it less kind.
Unfortunately, both are tails. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's two cheeks of the same arse, really, isn't it? I actually liked the lineup that he went with. Again, on reflection, hindsight, as Ben said, Tavernier at right centre back in the three, and maybe Max Aarons to come in. But no, when the lineup came out, I liked the shape, I liked the personnel, but I was really, really disappointed by what we actually saw on the park for the first period of the game. Yeah,
I think Celtic tactically had figured out overrun the midfield, and in reality we played with two midfielders, because Asgard, I don't think, contributed a huge amount in midfield, and I think Diomande and Raskin in the first half really were overrun. Celtic just kept winning the ball there and kept coming at us. Ben, Ross touched upon it there. We got off with their first goal, which was a bit of comedy defending. He was offside, but it was tight. But we didn't learn a lesson, and we lose a goal from a corner, which is a sentence I have uttered a few times this season. How do we improve defending cross balls? You're playing three centre halves, three big centre halves. You've got Gersnet on as well, who's also tall. Butland, who's tall. Raskin is decent in the air, and yet some guy who was playing for Sligo Rovers 2 years ago, somehow or other we made him look like he was Van Basten today. How do you improve that? Can coaching improve that? Is that a discipline thing? Is that a concentration thing? Why are we so poor with crosses just now?
Well, you talk about the boy playing for Sligo Rovers or wherever it was a few years ago. I mean, all that he had over our players in terms of winning the ball there is desire, is putting yourself out there and doing it, and leadership. And for me, no, I don't think you can coach that. I think we can coach better in terms of positioning and making sure everybody has. There's always going to be, you can always fault it from a coaching perspective, but at the end of the day, if you do not have, you can have 7 foot, 8 foot centre backs, but if they're not willing to put themselves there through anybody to get that ball, if you had he's had his criticisms and stuff there, but Goulson and the likes of Goulson would have had that organised and would make sure that we're getting on the end of that. And when he was, and I'm not saying he's the answer and bring back Coulson by any stretch, but that type of player, that type of stature, in there. But I think that the bigger thing with defending and with this desire and this leadership, when you look at our back four and half of it's on loan, do they really care? Do they have a desire? You've got Tav in there, fair enough. But the rest, all right, if Rangers don't win, they'll move on to a different loan or a different club next year. And do they really care? Are we building something long term? And that's obviously not Danny Rule's problem by any stretch at this stage. But for me, not to sound like Russell Martin, but that does come down to mentality, and that does come down to a desire to win. For me, this team right now lacks quality on both ends of the pitch. And let's be honest, then if you lack quality, then you need to be running over the top of other teams. You need to be first to every first and second ball. And we certainly are not, and are far from that.
Yeah, that's exactly that. But I've touched upon this, Ross, already, and I've touched upon it before. My son described Asgard a couple of months ago as Tom Lawrence with bad hair. And I now think that is doing Tom Lawrence a disservice. He has become my bête noire. Every team has to have. I remember you had one once who we didn't always agree on. Sometimes there's just a player that just for some reason you just can't take to, and I'm afraid Asgard is currently mine, and that can change. But currently he's mine. He just frustrates me because you can see he has ability. He does have ability. He can do nice things. He has the height, he has the physique to be an imposing player. You just don't think he has the heart. And I think that's the thing that's missing from him. Anyway, a pivotal moment in the game, arguably the pivotal moment in the game, was his sending off. What did you make of it? What did you if you saw it on TV, then you've obviously had a chance to see it a few times. What did you make of that sending off today, Ross?
Infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. It was a clear red. It was a red card. He goes in, he's high, he makes contact. On first viewing, I thought he might have punctured the boy's bollocks, which actually would have been a high point for the game for me. But it seems he got him just down the thigh. It was really, really, really disappointing because it was completely unnecessary. Because at that point, and actually, so I'll take a step back. With Asgard, he is one that I have high hopes for now that Martin has gone. Having watched what he did at Wigan and not watched what he did, having seen videos of him from Wigan and videos of him from Luton, he was one that I was really excited coming in. As you say, he has the height, he has the athleticism, he has the physique for it, and he looked like he had the skill. And he was one that I felt that maybe under Martin was just being stifled a bit. And then obviously Martin goes and we see him against Dundee United. He gets an excellent goal and I thought he played pretty well. And he was one where I was going, actually, this could be really, really positive. This could be the guy. I felt that today after the goal went in, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he was being over exuberant and just desperate to try and drag the team back into it. There was no need for him to work himself into the position to give that foul away, to commit that red card offence. He had his back to the Celtic goal, so he's facing our own goal. He was kind of 2/3 of the way up the pitch. The ball bounces. He tries to flick it over his own head into 3 Celtic players when he's got 2 boys that he's two of our own team that he's facing that he could just play the simple pass to. So I think he's got completely carried away, thinking I'm getting the team back into this, which again, benefit of the doubt is an admirable attitude to have. However, it was completely unnecessary at that time. It was a stupid situation that he manoeuvred himself into. If he plays a simple pass and moves, then it doesn't happen. And it does leave us in a really vulnerable position. It's impossible to say what would have happened had we stayed with 11 men on the pitch. The second half, we were the better team. In my opinion, I thought we came out and played some pretty good stuff, and I was happy with, if not always the quality, I was happy with a lot of the drive and the desire that we saw in the second half. 11 men might have changed it. I felt by the end of the extra time, we were knackered. They were absolutely exhausted. 11 men wouldn't have made that, it would have made that slightly less dramatic. So the boy has significantly let the team down today, and it was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. It's one of these ones that when I first saw it, I thought it was harsh. I thought VAR VAR will intervene there because he hasn't really caught him. And then when you see it again, you think, no, he definitely has caught him. And you think, that is reckless. You take your blue glasses off and you realise that for every team in the league, bar one, that's a straight red. I'm not convinced if Callum McGregor had done that, he's going off, but I think everybody else is going off on that. I think that's a straight red for everybody else. So I don't really think we could complain too much about it. And it was an absolutely huge turning point in the game. It really did. It 1-0 down and 10 men. You had some mountain to climb, particularly the way we were playing. Ross, Ben, Ross touched upon it there. The second half was a different game altogether. I mean, it's a cliche, but it was a real contrast from the first to the second. You would hope there'd be a reaction, but at the same time, I did expect Celtic to dominate the second half, and particularly when I saw that we brought on Gassama, I thought we're going to try and hit them in the break here, but it wasn't actually how it turned out. And for long periods we dominated, and you certainly couldn't say that we didn't deserve. I didn't see the goal coming, but you didn't deserve. You couldn't say we didn't deserve to get it. And what changed? What was the difference between the first half and the second half?
Yeah, I think there's no question we were the better team in the second half. But I think without trying to make the same point again, that's the point I made about the defending. Its mentality for me is these players like to almost be underdogs and with nothing to lose now, let's get out there. I suppose we would like to give them a wee bit of credit that the manager has probably put a rocket up them and sent them out there. But it's much easier to go out there and play when you've nothing to lose. Those players know that if they go out there 1-0 down, red card, and go hell for leather and give 100%, then they will walk out with a little bit of credit. Whereas the start of the game is when to get that credit. That's when to go with that tempo. Our tempo was just completely different. It was like we were rabbit in headlights the start of the game, and we were fearful of what they were going to do. And then we thought, right, with nothing to lose, let's play our game. And when we did, we were every bit as good as them, but better. I mean, in the second half, if you just switched the game on, you would not have known which team had 10 men. Definitely not. But you know, it's been a theme with this team, hasn't it? There has been flashes. There has been half of football in a game where we have been decent, but we haven't been able to really consistently put it through for 90 minutes. You know, you take a Dundee United game at home a couple of weeks ago. I thought we were brilliant in the first half, and I thought, wow, what is this? And in the second half, we're absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
So you know, it's just that reversed, and it's a big job for the manager to get us to put in 90 minutes performance. In terms of the work ethic, the tempo of our play, and then the actual quality as well. So big challenge for them.
Yeah, it is. You're dead right. We are a team this season that play one half of football, and you don't win anything by playing one half of football. You know, that's not going to get us anywhere. And it's an interesting point you make, actually, that the mentality of, you know, well, we've nothing to lose, we'll the shackles are off, we'll go for it. That's fine, but that you need to have a different mentality. You need to have a different discipline. One of the things I'd quite liked about our previous two games under the new manager was that he's changed it during the game. You know, he's made changes during the game. And I was really hoping after the first 20 minutes, look, he's going to change this. He's going to realise this isn't working, that, you know, they're all over us just now. They're coming at us in waves. You know, he's going to make a change. And he didn't make a change. And then by the time Asgard's off, it's difficult to make a change. It's going to, you know, you kind of thing. So, you know, Gassama certainly, you know, he obviously got the penalty, and he had a couple of very good chances as well, which I think he should have done better with, frankly. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's a very good point you make, that it's a mentality. That's what was different. There's nothing to lose, so we go for it. And that's disappointing. You know, Rangers teams, you need to have a better mentality than that. Ross, let's look at other aspects of this game. I know we've talked about this before, but you know, it was just so visible today. I don't know how else to put this. Trusty kicked Butland in the head deliberately. And there's no other way to describe what happened. You know, it wasn't a full-throated boot, but he stuck his foot out and kicked him in the head. You know, he meant it. He may regret it, but he absolutely meant it. There was nothing accidental about it. Ralston was already booked and gave away a penalty. That apparently isn't another booking. I don't know how that works. You know, that Maeda, he must have committed 8 fouls before he gets booked. And I'm not exaggerating there. He's fouling all over the park before he gets a booking. Cornelius makes one good tackle. He won the bloody ball. And he gets a booking. You know, it's one of these ones, we used to laugh at them, used to say they're paranoid, and that you think, what's happened here? But there's no other way to describe this just now. We are currently being refereed to a different standard to Celtic. And I don't know how else to describe today. You know, if we're all in agreement, and I think we probably are all in agreement, you know, that Asgard deserved his red card. I don't think he meant it. You know, I think it was just, you know, I don't think he actually meant to sink his studs into the boy. I think he was just poor football. How does Trusty stay in the park? How does Ralston stay in the park? You know, and even if we accept that these are bad decisions, what do we do about this? You know, because it's ongoing, and it's been ongoing now for a while, and I don't know if it's an unconscious bias. I don't know if it is, you know, a totally conscious bias. I don't know if referees are just so scared of Celtic that they just err on their side if they're unsure. I don't know what it is, but what do we do about it? Because it's not fair. You know, it's not. You know, today was one of the most blatant examples. But we wouldn't need to go far back to see other examples of this and decisions that just Celtic get that no other team in the league get. What do we do about it?
Yeah, what do we do about it? It's such a difficult question, because it does feel now that there's an uneven playing field. You referenced blue tinted specs earlier tonight, and it's very, very difficult to take those off. And obviously all of what I'm about to say comes from a place of being a season ticket holder for Rangers, right? It feels that I believe that today the game should have ended 10 men versus 9 men. I think that Celtic should have had 2 sent off. I think that Trusty kicked a guy in the head whilst he was on the floor, not challenging for the ball. The ball was in the keeper's possession. It was under control, and he kicked. He changes his body angle.
It was utterly deliberate.
And if so, that word deliberate is often debated in football in the context of a handball, and we've seen deliberate handballs given where someone sort of flinches and does that, and that's a deliberate handball. This guy and that doing that and flinching like that is a kind of automatic, involuntary,
instinctive reaction. Exactly.
That's deliberate. This guy changed his body shape and flicked his leg out to kick a guy in the face, and yet it was a yellow card. So the Trusty should have been sent off. It is a red card, and I think everyone, every comment, every media outlet, everyone seems to be in agreement that it's a red card. Ralston was on a yellow. He gave away a penalty for a handball in the box. Now, he deliberately threw himself to the ground in order to block the ball.
Yeah.
It came off his elbow. That is a yellow card because he deliberately handballed the ball in the box. It is a yellow card. However, there were a number of other challenges for which Anthony Ralston could have been booked today. He could have been booked 4 or 5 times over.
Absolutely.
Now, I can think of twice, 2 occasions in which Magoma knocks the ball past him, and so Ralston just
body checks him. Absolutely.
No attempt to play the ball. It's a yellow card. So he could have been booked 4 or 5 times over. Celtic should have been down to 9 men. There's not really any arguing with it. Nick Walsh was the referee today. Nick Walsh was the referee when Mohamed Diomande was sent off against Dundee United for being pushed and flinching, right? And he got sent off for that. And that red card was overturned and the SFA apologised. So that's fine. Nick Walsh was the referee when Nico Raskin scored a goal against Hibs, but Nick Walsh didn't quite see the ball go over the line, so he didn't give the goal, even though it was clearly more than a foot over the line. And in fact, the Hibs defender had to kick it out from inside the goal, out of the goal, and it hit off the post as he did that. So that, but that was Nick Walsh. But the SFA admitted that was wrong, and they apologised for that one. Nick Walsh cannot referee our games. He seems to just every time he seems to make these extraordinary decisions that go against us, that the SFA, his employers, have to come out and apologise for what he's done. There are so many examples. There are so many examples from the last 10 years of Rangers being done over by refereeing decisions. More out than in a year ago. More out than in. That's the one that we never, ever, ever should have let it go. But as you say, John, well, what do you do about it? Because we can do a statement. We can do I've seen today that we've gone through Chris Jack. We're going to be asking questions. We want an explanation. Well, we'll get an explanation. The explanation will be, I'm sorry, we got it wrong. Yeah. Should have been a red card, probably. Game's gone. Celtic win another trophy. So I don't know what we do about it. I mean, do you remember 3 or 4 years ago? I think probably post the COVID season, Rangers kind of compiled all of this evidence of corruption and bias, presented it to the media and to the SFA, and the media came out and said, "We've read it. There's nothing there. Don't worry. Move on." So I don't know what they do other than to just have a kind of running piece on the website highlighting every kind of controversy or decision that goes against us. But it just doesn't feel fair, because today it should have been 10 versus 9. It should have been 10 versus 9, and then it's a different game.
Yeah.
They're given hell.
They go down to 10 men at half time. Then it's the second half is an even contest.
Yeah.
Ralston getting sent off with 6 minutes to go. I'm not sure that makes a huge difference to the 90 minutes that have gone before. Our players are still far more tired. Trusty should have been sent off. There's just no debate about it. I find it staggering.
John.
And you go, Ben.
Sorry, no, but just to say, Ross is completely 100% right to go after Nick Walsh. But what my concern is, I agree completely, but my concern is, like, Nick Walsh sees him, kick him in the face. The VAR at that point goes, yeah, we've seen that. There's nothing. So it's not only Nick Walsh on the pitch, but it's somebody that's watched that in video and doesn't even think to himself, here, hold on, maybe we'll tell Nick he might want to have another look at that while he's a chance. They look at that and they say, no, that's totally fine. Same with a penalty in the same competition last season for Journey. And, seasons can be totally different because of these things. I'm not saying the League Cup is the be all end all, but it's the fact that we now have VAR. If this was 10, when we lost the final of this in 2019 and their goal was offside, we didn't have VAR, so we don't have this argument to come back and go, well, and that's why you bring it in. But then don't bother bringing it in because
even if Nick Walsh says, oh, let's be charitable and say Nick Walsh sees it once at full speed and thinks, I don't think he meant it. I don't think he meant to kick him in the face. I think it was just the angle he was at. That's why I've only booked him. The guy who's watching VAR watches that and says, I think he did mean it. He definitely meant it. He's gone out his way to do that. He's flicked his foot out to kick him in the face.
Equally, Asgard didn't mean it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that was the point.
They're both reds.
I don't think Asgard meant it either.
No, they didn't. They're both red cards. Yeah. If you'd asked me about Asgard, I'd have said there's no conversation to have because they're both red cards. It's simple. And the thing about Ralston as well is you can talk about how he was booked and then he gave away a penalty, should have been booked again, and that's completely right again. But in the first half, he pulls Danilo back so clearly, doesn't get a yellow card.
And that's a professional foul. That is a yellow card.
His second, and the ref gives that, so there's no excuse then. You're just not following the rules then if you're not booking that. So his actual booking should have been a second booking. So it's totally different. I know we get the penalty and all, but if he's not there to block the ball at that point, and they're already down to 10 men, these referees are, and we lose a game and it's easy to sound like sour grapes, but these referees are changing the outcome of these seasons, not just games, seasons. No,
I agree, and it's. I don't think, I'm not just blaming the referee for this, because over the piece, Celtic probably deserved to win because comes extra time, they were fitter, they were, as you would expect to be after, 70 minutes playing with 10 men. Celtic had more in the tank in extra time. I think that we could all see that. But that is not a great Celtic team. That's one of the frustrations here. Is not? I looked at that Celtic defence and I thought, oh, here we go. And we made those two muppets in centre half look like Baresi and Maldini today. And that's more a statement on our attack than it is on their defence. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about just now, because we've talked about it lots of times before, and we've talked about it already tonight. Was our defending. It's been criticised all season. Actually, I think the real problem just now in this Rangers team lies up front. We just don't have goals in this team just now. Chermeti, I think people could make an argument to say he has been improving over the last few weeks. He sometimes holds the ball up a bit better. I still think he doesn't know what the goal is, which is ultimately what you're looking for from your centre forward. I think he continues to disappoint. I think the only player who makes Chermeti look good just now is Miovski, who's been a massive disappointment since he joined. I was actually quite excited by his signing. I know he didn't cost the same as Chermeti, but he's not showing anything just now. Danilo had some flashes. He won lovely today. He won lovely kind of turn and pass where he played. I think it was Raskin he played through. But it is just flashes and no more than that. He's not changing games. He's not a target man. If that's the kind of football we're going to play, he isn't the man who can do that. Gisama, who is probably our only good summer piece of business so far. He doesn't look like he can score all that often. Today, again, a bit like we talked about the defending, is there anything we can do about that? Is there anything that can be done to put goals into this team? Because when all is said and done, we created 4 or 5 really good chances today. how Gassama missed that one early on, it defies belief that one didn't go in. It's very, very frustrating. There's a few like that today where you think, you know what, we've got to take chances like that. You create chances like that in the game. In a game like that, you got to take them. Can anything be done? Is it just a case of plodding through to January and hope that we can find somebody in the window who can score goals? How do you get more goals into that team?
I think it's goal scoring is a confidence game. So while they're continuing to miss, it's going to become harder to score. But that's I think when you talk about Mialski, who I was excited when we signed, but I think he's been absolutely terrible. Not just he hasn't actually missed that many chances, but his lack of movement has been appalling for me. Chermiti, I would have started today, and I think what you said is right in terms of he has been getting slowly better, but not in terms of scoring goals. I mean, he's been getting slowly better, but that's primarily because his baseline was below what was acceptable.
Yeah.
But he is offering slightly more for the team. I agree. But yeah, it's a big concern. But I think without going over old ground and stuff, it just shows you how bad a job Kevin Thelwell is doing. I mean, if you look at the fact that we have had a summer that we've spent 30 million and we do not have anyone who we can rely on scoring goals. I think Danilo's all right. I think Danilo will be all right. But at the end of the day, we're going into a game against Celtic, and our best chance is somebody who 2 weeks ago was our third choice striker, and we would have happily sold if we could have in the summer. So that sums up how bad it is. It's important that I think I can see what he's doing in terms of playing Danilo and Chermiti there, because what we need to do now is form relationships, and we need to kind of bank on a pairing being the way to go. So I can understand it, but I suppose the other thing is you can improve. When I talked about the defending and it being desire and it being that, you can't coach that, but you can coach movement and you can coach striking. So you would hope that the new coaching team, and again with more additions to be made to that, can improve these players, because if not, then why are they there simply? But yeah, we do need to plod along until January, and I think we need to make some tough decisions in the team and sort of almost not just up front, but with the season slipping away further and further, I think we need to be looking at the future as opposed to all these young players. I don't know what the boy, again, sorry to go back to the defence, but I don't know what the boy Fernandez is like. But at the end of the day, if he isn't any worse than Jaga right now, then let's release him, basically. So give him a chance, because we know that one we probably, even if Jaga was good enough, we probably couldn't afford him in the summer. So he's not going to benefit us going forward now, especially with the season being how it is. So are we not better just giving a chance to the players that are our players and we've spent money on, and then it's up to them whether they take the chance or not?
Yeah, listen, for the little I saw of him last season, I'd give the Seattle game just now. At least he's ours. Like you said, Fernandez, I mean, everybody raised their eyebrows at that signing. Can he be worse than Jigger? Well, I mean, possibly he can. The one that I don't understand why he's fallen out of favour is Curtis. Curtis was one of the few shining lights at the start of the season. He was scoring goals. He was usually coming off the bench. He was, coming in, bringing energy. He doesn't seem to even be in the consideration just now, which I don't know. I mean, I don't see him in training. I don't know what his attitude's like. I can't comment on any of those things. I don't think he could do the job of a target man holding the ball up. I'm not saying that, but I am surprised he isn't getting any game time, because the one thing he did look like he had about him was a nose for goals. And the little I've seen him, and goals is what we're missing just now. Even against Hibs, it was great to get that victory, but it's just one goal, and all the way through, we needed Butland, who, I'm not going to talk about extra time. We can wonder about Butland's positioning for their second goal, but at the same time, he kept us in the game. Other points in it, so I don't think we can criticise him too much. But he won the game for us against Hibs. that penalty save. And frankly, had we conceded a penalty there, I don't know, be interesting to see what might have happened to us. Goals is what's missing just now. We need to find more goals. If goals change games, it's I'm sticking with cliches tonight. Ross, any positives to take from today? Which is never easy when you do these podcasts on a Sunday after you've just lost a cup semi-final to Celtic to find any positives. But was there anything you took from today? Anything you might over the next few days when you're feeling a little calmer and sober? Do you think you might look back and think, actually, okay, that's something we could take from today?
If it's an exercise in straw grasping, I'm sure I can think of something. The attitude of the players in the second half, I think was markedly different to anything else we've seen this season. So I was pleased that 10 men could come out and fight and get themselves back into the game. Because in that first half they looked completely off the pace. So I was pleased with that. And this is against the context of a team that has been utterly wounded by Russell Martin. I think Russell Martin has destroyed those players' confidence. I think he's destroyed them mentally. So I am pleased that I think we are seeing shoots of recovery. Obviously, it's a difficult day. It's a disappointing day. And it is really a small crumb of comfort. But I was happy to see some dig and some fight, which over the last 2 to 3 years has been my main criticism of the players, is that they haven't looked arsed. They just haven't looked bothered and they haven't fought. I do feel that they did that today. So I'm also, again, even with a loss today, I've been quite vocal that I never thought that Danny Rowe was the right guy. I didn't think he was the right guy in the summer. I was then, I kind of put all my cards or all my chips onto Steven Gerrard. However, that being said, I am definitely encouraged by what I'm seeing from Danny Rowe with his sort of tactical flexibility. The fact that he's come out and he said, "Look, we made changes, we went more attacking, and we got ourselves back into the game." I was pleased to see that. I think the players seem to be playing for him, certainly much more than they did for the previous guy. And I think putting all of that to one side, today never really was going to define our season. Our season has had such a catastrophic start that actually, at best, today could have been a really, really nice distraction. But we know that the aim of the game now is to haul ourselves back into league contention. So today came too soon for the new manager. I think that's undoubted. And in that sense, today was never the be all and end all. It's always so deeply unpleasant to lose to them. It is so deeply unpleasant to lose to them because of not solely because of, but so heavily impacted by crap officials. But today never was going to define our season. Our season will be defined by the next 6 to 12 weeks, I think. How does this team continue to go from strength to strength? How do they continue to recover? And then we get ourselves to January and see what happens then.
Ben, I mean, that's 4 matches under Danny Rowe. 2 defeats, 2 victories. I didn't know a lot about him before he was appointed. I'd heard that Sheffield Wednesday, I knew Sheffield Wednesday were in trouble financially. Just following football, I can't claim to be a huge follower of the English Championship, but I knew that they were in trouble. I know they're a big club. I always feel sorry for fans when their club finds themselves in that situation. We know what it's like. So I'd heard that their manager, who they seemed to like, had left in the summer. He just basically couldn't take any more. Was as much as I knew about him. Like Ross says, he probably wasn't my first choice either. I don't really know who my first choice was, but he probably wasn't my first choice. I probably would have preferred Muscat. But, he's come in, he's got the job. And, in the 4 games I've seen us play, at 1 we were outplayed the entire match. 2 we've won. By showing, some tactical awareness and changes and a bit of fight, and then 1 we've lost. where we played well in one half, played poorly in another, and basically ran out of steam at the end through, as Ross says, things outside of our control. What's been your first impressions on our new manager? What's your thoughts on where we are and who we're with now?
Yeah, I think two things that Ross said there. Shoots of recovery is what I would say, other than that first game, obviously, but he was in for 2 days before the first game. He had to do all that media stuff. I'm not worried about it. But I think shoots of recovery is what we've seen over the 3 games. I think I'm encouraged. And to be honest with you, John, if he'd have won all 4 games, I'd have still not been going crazy because we've been burnt too many times, new manager bounce and all. I want to see us able to be consistently improving. But I'm pleased with how I think he's handled himself well in terms of the press. I think he's managed to try and unite the fans and the team again in a short space of time. And you can see that, when I look at Russell Martin, I couldn't see what he was doing with the team. Well, you could actually see his impact on the team, and it wasn't for the favourable. But I can see that Danny Rule has been in for 3 weeks, whatever it is, maybe not even 2 weeks. And I can see his impact on the team. I can see that the players, one, haven't been trying to teach this uncoachable, incomprehensible. Excuse me, that's easy for me to say.
I enjoy the fact that you're struggling to say incomprehensible. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually, irony. But anyway, I can see what he's trying to do. I think the players are playing for him. That should be the bare minimum of playing. They shouldn't be playing for him. They should be playing for Rangers anyway. But it needs a bit of both. I'm encouraged, but I'm still open minded. I think when you look at, I didn't know much about him either, but anybody that's been speaking about him, I've heard Barry Bannon talking about him very, very highly, speaks of him. A footballing genius like Windass has been speaking very highly of him as well. So anytime I've heard anyone speaking of him, and when you look, I know he was only a coach there, but you don't work at Germany or Bayern Munich if you don't know what you're doing. I know we've heard it with Beale being a great coach and with Martin supposedly being a great coach, and you need to be a manager. But I feel like he's closer to both the figure, not quite a figurehead, but he's closer to that as well as being the tactician and being the good on the grass. So I think overall I am optimistic, and I think if he's getting a turn out of some of these players, I would like to see him with his own players, and potentially with a director of football that might know what he's doing as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Homa looks like a much better player in the last 4 games. I think he looked what he is at the start of the season, which is a teenager playing his first real season of football, and at times getting severely caught out. I think going 5 at the back or 3 at the back, whichever way you look at it, has probably helped shore up the defence a bit, made us a bit more solid, and probably allowed both Tav and Magoma to play to their strengths, which is clearly going forward. The downside of that, I think, is it's leaving us short in midfield. I think we are in danger of being overrun in midfield, and if, as Celtic did today, you put 2 players out wide, then it forces out those 2 players to fullbacks not to go forward, and it kind of defeats the purpose. But that, these are things for managers and players to sort. But yeah, it was a low base. I think someone said that earlier for something else. It was a low base he was coming in on. Martin was so clearly unable to do the job in many ways. Whoever comes in to replace him is going to look like an improvement, certainly at the start. I've been impressed by the way he's very quickly managed to get some kind of structure into the team, because I felt that was sadly lacking under Martin. There just was no structure there. And he's managed to get a structure in the team. I do know, you can see what we're trying to do. Whether you agree with it or not, you now see what you're trying to do. I also think he can only work with the players he's got. He has inherited that squad. We have 3 recognised strikers, none of whom seem capable of scoring a goal, or at least going in any kind of run. Our midfield, I thought it was interesting today. and I've actually read some people criticise Rowe for taking off Raskin. I think Raskin was done. I think he didn't take off Raskin for a tactical reason. He took off Raskin because I guess they're seeing the data. They're seeing how far he's run in the match. He's on a booking. He's one missed time tackle away from us going down to 9 men, and I don't think the referee would have been quite as slow to send Raskin off for a missed time tackle. So I understand him taking Raskin off. I think it definitely weakened us, but I understand why he did it. I thought it was interesting he didn't put Rothwell on for him, who would have been the obvious replacement. I thought that was interesting, and I wonder what that tells us of his view of Rothwell, who is a player who has failed to impress me. So he can only work with the players he's got. Ross, you said yourself he wasn't your first choice. He's here now. Do you think the backroom team's finished? Do you think have we got all the coaches in place? I keep hearing potential rumours that we're maybe going to bring in somebody Scottish, maybe somebody who's been at the club before, who perhaps knows the league and the teams in it and the personalities in it. Do you think that's likely to happen?
Yeah, I think I've seen sort of similar things. There seems to be a lot of chat about he's bringing in someone that used to play for the club, and it'll either be Stephen Davis, or it might be Lee Wallace, or it might be Neil McCann. I don't know if there's anything actually concrete to that.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from either, but that's
is it just that kind of we've decided that, and therefore we've kind of said that that's what's going to happen? I mean, obviously Pedro Caixinha famously brought in Jonathan Johansson, and that seemed to be a sensible thing, seemed to go well. But my honest opinion of these things is that, and I think I've said this on here before, is pick the coaches you actually want to work with. Like, pick the guys that you think are good coaches. Don't be overly worried about getting someone in to tell the players about the fabric of the club, because there are enough people around the club that know about the club. Like from this the security guard that greets you as you walk in at Auchenhowie, through to the kit men, through to James Tavernier, who's been there getting on 11 years now. The canteen staff, the physios. There's enough.
Yeah, there's 50,000 people there every second week who'll tell them about that. Yeah,
and all you need to do is get them as part of their induction. I don't know, you get a new job and you've got an induction in your first week. Part of that induction should be going around the Rangers Museum, and that will teach you about the fabric of the club. So I fear sometimes we place too much stock in that, to say we need someone that's coached here before. Do you remember sort of both in the summer and then again when it looked like Steven Gerrard was coming back, there was a huge amount of get Defoe in. Defoe should be our strikers coach. You go, well, is he any good as a coach? I don't know if he's actually any good as a coach. And I've seen a number of folks saying Scott Arfield. Get Scott Arfield in. He should be the coach, the Rangers coach. You go, he's playing in the league. He plays for Falkirk. He's not going to come and be a coach for us. I know that there's sometimes there should be a guy that's good to have around the team. But do you remember, when we had Mark Warburton, his assistant manager was Davy Weir. And a lot of people were saying we're going to be, it was clear that it was going to be Warburton and Weir. We're going to be so well drilled defensively. We're going to be so organised. We were shocking defensively under Mark Warburton. Do you remember watching Rob Kiernan trying to defend a corner?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's always that simple as he's played for us, he gets it, he'll be a good coach. I think it worked for Pedro. If that's what Danny Rule wants to do, then fine. But I would always say just get the coaches that you think are good coaches.
Yeah,
I think it was interesting there that Davis was asked about it, and all the talk this week has been it's either Davis or Neil McCann, and Davis was asked about it pre-match today, and he maybe is a wonderful poker player, but he said it's news to him, and he's heard it from other people. He hasn't actually had any talks.
Yeah.
So either he's playing that very well, but yeah, I agree with you. We just need a coach that is going to get us playing good football and winning. And if they happen to have Rangers links, wonderful. If not, so what?
Yeah, I agree with Tyler. Get the best coach. He doesn't have to have any link to Rangers. If you can get out the best coaches, they're going to get the best at that squad. That's exactly what we need to do. Guys, I'll finish tonight with a game on Thursday. against Roma. I think it's the first time I've ever played Roma. I don't think I've played Roma before. I couldn't recall us ever playing Roma, and I didn't see anything in the 20 seconds I spent on my phone before coming on here to check that. They lost tonight to AC Milan, so I don't imagine there's too much. I thought AC Milan Italian football's funny just now. The kind of Inter Milan, Juventus, AC Milan, who were the kind of big three for a long time. It's all a bit more mixed up just now. But they're having a reasonable season domestically. They're in the top four. Nobody's running away with it this season in Italy. So Roma are there or thereabouts, but they've not had a great time in the Europa League. Lost 2 games, won 1. Lost to Vittoria Pleasant in their last game. That said, they're still Roma. They'll still have good players. I don't know what's happened. We used to look forward to Thursdays. Thursdays used to be our escape from games like today. There's no escape just now. Ben, I'll ask you first. Can you see our poor European form coming to an end this Thursday, or are we in for more of the same, do you think?
In short, no, I don't hold much hope. I think for several reasons. I think the fact that we're out basically anyway, so I don't think it really matters. I think we need to be focusing on, I know winning breeds winning, but I think we need to be focusing on domestic stuff and getting consistently good there. They may be struggling, they've lost tonight or whatever, but we're struggling to beat average Scottish teams at the minute, let alone Italian ones. So I hope I'm wrong, but no, I don't think our record is going to end at the moment.
Ross, are you? You're a hopeful man. You're a glass half full. You're like Ben here. You're a guy who views the world and says, "Bring it on." What's your feelings for Thursday? Are you following much Italian football these days?
No, I don't. None of that fancy continental muck for me. No, I've fallen out of love with the Europa League because this season I've been to Bruges at home, Bruges away, Graz away, and Bergen. So, no, I'm not enjoying the Europa League.
Tell me you're not going on Thursday, yeah?
I'm not going on Thursday. Absolutely not. No, it's not going to get any easier. I think Ben's right. I think it's a bit of a free hit. I would like some of the younger players to play and to enjoy it. I would like to see Mikey Moore start. I would like to see Finlay Curtis get a run out. I would like to see Jayden Magoma, be told just go and play and have fun and enjoy it, because it's a hell of an opportunity. These players, unfortunately, many of them are likely to go on and have slightly crap journeyman careers. This could well be the pinnacle, right? So go and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a fair point, actually. That is a fair point. Like you say, it's difficult to see past a struggle on Thursday. You just assume Roma are going to have a bit too much for us. And as we can't score goals, then I don't really see how in the past, we used to come on here and complain about Dessers. He would just be scoring the 25 goals in a season. We'd just be complaining about, his distribution and his attitude and his work rate and things. But, at least we were scoring goals. We had players over the last few seasons that, if the chance came up, they would take it. I'm not convinced if the chance comes up just now, we're in a position to take it. Listen, just before I finish, Ben, I have to ask you, who's in the wall behind you?
Steve Davis, Rory McIlroy, and Alan McGregor. And another Rory McIlroy at the very top.
Rory McIlroy, right. I couldn't figure out.
He can't play up front, unfortunately, though. So yeah,
I couldn't figure out who that was. So it's Rory McIlroy, right? Okay, there you go. I was looking at it thinking, which player's that? Steve Davis and Alan McGregor I'd recognise, but the other one I was struggling with a wee bit. Sorry, what did you? I cut you off halfway through your explanation.
No, my cousin drew that for me, the Royal McIlroy one. So it's very good.
Okay, all right, very good. There you go. So there's talent in the family, Ben.
Yeah, didn't reach me, but yep.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I share your lack of talent there, I'm afraid. That's why we're doing this. Guys, listen, I don't know if that did feel like therapy. I don't know if you feel any better. you know, you might in a few days. Maybe it's delayed. I don't know. Anyway, I appreciate you giving up your Sunday evening and joining me and talking through today. So please enjoy what's left of your Sunday night. I hope you have a good week. To everybody else, I just remind you that the podcast is available on a whole variety of platforms: Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and of course Spotify. There is a podcast planned for Friday, and if I'm very quickly, I'll tell you who's on. It's Rob and Scott who are on Friday night, who will be basking in the glow of a memorable night against Roma at Ibrox, as well as looking forward to league duty again. And of course, let's be honest, keeping in touch in the league is probably what it's all about. I think we can keep in touch in the league through to January, and then we'll see where we get to. So please join them on Friday night. You know what, guys? We get disappointments sometimes. That's just how it goes. It's how you deal with them that counts. So thanks very much for